welcome to the Rebel Ballerina Show, where we learn to live a kick-ass rebel life. I'm your host, Lisa Laree, the Rebel Ballerina. There's no farting around in this show, just straight up fun. But if your ears are sensitive, go ahead and move along. If you want a truly kick-ass life, well, then here we go. Well, hello, and welcome to the Rebel Ballerina Show. I'm your host, Lisa Laree, and you guessed it, the Rebel Ballerina. Since I am the only one here, that kind of makes sense. But anyway, I have a question for you today. Of course, I usually always have lots of questions. I'm a very curious person, and I really want you to answer. Really do. So please comment below because it's an important topic, one very near and dear to my heart. And that question is, are you living below the threshold of possibility? I really want to know. And before we get into the nitty gritty of that, I also want to invite you to take a look at my ebook. It is From Almost Ending It All to Becoming a Fun Hot Bitch Mom. Kind of a long title, kind of tongue twisty. But the meat of the book could very well have something to do with your life, as does this question. So check it out. Please check it out. Go to that link and get a copy of it. It's actually a very easy read. Don't let the length of it fool you because it's a lot of just one-line stuff. Just, want you to think instead of get overwhelmed with words. So I'll try not to overwhelm you with words right now. But back to that question. Are you living below the threshold of possibility? So what exactly do I mean by that? What is the threshold of possibility? Well, you know what? I was able to go through a book with my boyfriend. He is a fantastic person, by the way, just saying. And he's also the co-founder of Rebel Fawn. So we listened to an audio version of this really great book called Ben and Me. Is that right? I think that was it. Anyway, it's a guy who writes a biography of Benjamin Franklin by going through his footsteps. Fascinating read or listen, whichever one you need to do. And this guy retraces Benjamin Franklin's footsteps, literally. I mean, like he went to all of the different places where Benjamin Franklin lived, traveled, spent time in Europe, spent time in the UK, spent time in France, and then the different places, particularly Philadelphia. That would be Benjamin Franklin's favorite place. I really encourage you to get a copy of this and read it, listen to it. It's fascinating because this author is talking about one of the most brilliant people, Benjamin Franklin. Super cool, super curious, and his whole thing in life. Oh, I have a copy of the cover. Thank you. Eee! How does this work? How come I can't make it work? Why can't I make it work? I can't make it work. I'm sorry. The author's name is Mike Upchurch. The title is Ben and Me. Not Ben and Jerry's, Ben and Me by Mike Upchurch. It's such a thank you, such a great read or listen. And Benjamin Franklin is a very fascinating person, someone that I find personally fascinating. I mean, to me, he's right up there with Da Vinci and the great inventors. But the way he thought and his philosophy in life was something that I can agree with, if you will, or I resonate with how he lived, how he viewed life. One of his favorite things was being useful. Everything was about being useful. Whatever it didn't matter what it was. It was, is this useful? Is it useful to him? Particularly, is it useful to service of society or community or whoever it is that is needing whatever? Um, to be completely ambiguous for you. So I guess you're just going to have to read it because I'm not going to cite specifics, except for the fact that there is one recurring theme throughout this book, along with the usefulness, and that was Ben Franklin's view of possibilities. As a matter of fact, I think he's the one that coined this term. I'm going to give him the credit for this term, but it might not have originated with him. But he used the word possibilian. In other words, he was a possibilian. He believed in infinite possibilities for a person's life. So now we come back to this question: are you living below the threshold of possibilities? The thing is, you have to further ask the question: where is the threshold of possibilities then? Who puts a threshold on possibilities? Are you living somebody else's ideas and designs on your life? Are you fully engaged in what it is you want to do? Your own dreams, aspirations, talents, gifts? Are you reaching for more, discovering more, learning more, doing more, but really the essence, being more? Because you're going to have to be more in order to keep moving toward possibility. And that's the sticking point, I find. That's the sticking point, especially for us fawn types. Before becoming a rebel fawn and the rebel ballerina, I was allowing my life, my dreams, my aspirations, all that I had already put the work in for, and already was having some really good success with in my career, I let that get sidetracked and I let that be dismantled because of someone else's design on my life. It had already been questioned in my first marriage. Yes, I was married one other time. Almost doesn't count because it was only for a year and a half. And the poor guy, he was actually a nice guy, just kind of wrong place, wrong time type thing. Not to diminish marriage or anything, but that's literally the situation. He was a very nice guy, but it was just not the right situation. I mean, at that point, I was still in utter disarray from my mom's death and really should not have been making any kind of big life altering decisions like marriage. But that's a whole nother I can get into more details, that's a whole nother conversation. But "Oh, did I do that wrong? Uh-oh, I was led astray." That's okay. Let me try this again. The Ben in Me is actually written by Eric Weiner, Weiner. Ben and Me, the cover here has Ben winking, which is really cute, by Eric Weiner. I'll see if I can do this again so you can see it, but I don't know how to make this work. See, there's Ben winking. Don't you love that? That is such a great depiction of who he sounds like he was. I would love to meet him in person. I would love to meet that personality because there's one thing Ben Franklin had was a ton of personality. And quite frankly, frankly, no pun intended, I really love that about him. Maybe that's why I am drawn to him. He has personality, he has a different kind of way of seeing things. He was outside the box, and I appreciate that. But during this time of my first marriage, I was inside the box. And I didn't realize it, of course, but I ended up with a nice guy that time. However, he wanted to move to a different state, but I was dancing at a company at the time, and I went to that other state to their company and auditioned, but there were no open contracts. So I said, "Well, you can move if you want, but I'm not going anywhere because this is where I have a contract. This is where I need to be, at least for right now." So we went separate ways. And um, that was the first time that my career was directly challenged to me. The first time I've explained already in a previous episode where I talked about my dad, and my dad wanted to quit paying for my lessons. He was tired of it. It was expensive, and it is. I'm not going to lie, ballet is a very expensive undertaking. However, my mom understood fully well that my what I was doing, what I was spending all this time toward and his money toward was not a hobby as he saw it. This was my career. And it is my deepest desire. It was exactly what I'm designed to do. Thankfully, she saw that, even if he didn't. But that wasn't directly toward me. She stood in that gap. My dad never said anything to me directly in those terms. He just behaved it in many ways that told me what he felt without words. It seems like that's been part of my life pattern that I would find people who didn't necessarily have to say words, didn't have to yell at me, didn't have to hit me, but behaviors, passive aggressive, insidious abusiveness, those were the things that I ended up dealing with. So back to that first marriage and the challenge to my career. And I stood up for myself and my career and stayed put and kept dancing. The second time around getting married, I made it clear that I was going to keep dancing, even if and when children came along. We had some ideas on how to handle that. In other words, nowhere in my conversations with my ex did I say, my second ex, that is, did I say anything to the effect of any kind of time frame, even on my dancing. There was no time frame. I never put a limit on myself. I was just going to keep dancing. That was it. I was going to keep performing, keep dancing, keep doing the thing that I do and that I trained so hard for. And the thing that I love and is literally everything to me. I made that very clear. But a year after the ceremony and the vows were exchanged, the truth of his intent for my life was revealed. Of course, we were halfway around the world by then. I was completely isolated and not able to really contact family and friends very easily. I had made some new friends where I was, but that was also kind of a boxy thing. The long and short of it is, it was revealed at that time there was no ballet company where we were at that moment, even though he had insisted, promised, whatever it is you want to call it, that there was. He said he researched it. He researched everything, so I trusted him. That was the wrong thing to do. But I didn't know that because there was no indication prior to this point that something was awry. There was no indication that I was aware of. Now I see it, but there was no indication then that I recognized as a problem. That's when it was revealed. And he said, if you want to go back to the States to dance, that's fine, but I will not support you. And I, I felt instantly, well, it's not like I felt instantly trapped. The bars around me came into view. That's what it really was. I had already been trapped. I said the vows, but now I could see the cage. That's not what I agreed to. So I beg to differ about that marriage. And that's a whole nother, that's a legal argument. I call it a non-marriage, even though I spent 21 years in it, because it was done through deceit. To me, you deceive a contract, it's null and void. But this is still a marriage on paper, so it had to be handled that way. So back to the question, are you allowing someone else to dictate your life? If that is the case, if you're a fawn like me, especially a pre-rebel fawn, and you're stuck in it, and you are a heavy-duty people-pleasing, even though you know it's costing you your own soul, or maybe you don't even realize it yet. Maybe you're feeling something's not quite right, but you can't put your finger on it. You're feeling a vibe, something your intuition's been screaming at you, but you're like going, doo, 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 I don't hear anything. I'm going to ignore that. What are you saying? Ah, never mind. I don't want to hear it because then I might have to change something. And that's scary. Change something? But what if it's worse? What if it's worse? What if I get out of this and I have nothing and then I'm groveling? What if I'm thrown out onto the street? What will I do then? How do I even get off this crazy little island? I don't know what to do. If you're feeling that way at all, then I guarantee you, you are living below the threshold of possibilities. Guaranteed. And that's not why you were meant to be here at all. See, being here on planet Earth presupposes a life of possibility and presupposes that you should investigate and be curious and about and how to make that come to be. It also presupposes your own particular gifts and your vantage point. It shows that you have something to offer that we all could benefit from. And when it's being stifled and held back, it's impossible, right? For the last 20 whatever years that I was in that marriage, I mean, that was 10 years ago when I got out, but it was impossible for me to live my career the way I wanted to, the way I had envisioned it all along and what I had worked for. Sure, I got to do little things here and there. Sure, I got to have moments of doing stuff. Yeah, I could go and take class a couple of days a week. That was like crumbs. You have to understand, when I was dancing full time, I was taking class and rehearsing 6 to 7 hours a day, 6 days a week. And then I'm going to go from that to absolutely zero while I discover that there is no company where I now live. And then coming back to the States with him 4 years later and with a baby, I discover that getting back into it, I can't the way I wanted to. I'm out of shape. I had a very difficult pregnancy. That's a whole nother story. Really cool story though. Miracle. Woo! I'll have to share that with you in another episode. The fact is, I could not be in the realm of possibility anymore. And the problem with that is, I chose that. That's the hard fact. Yes, I was deceived. Absolutely. My ex finagled his way to getting this marriage because he knew darn well that if he came out and said, "Well, I don't want you to dance anymore," I would have been like, "Bye. This isn't the right person for me." He knew that. And he love bombed hard, really hard to win me over. And then he didn't say anything contrary while I was talking about how I'm going to dance. And I talked about that a lot. A lot. He hung out at the studio. He was backstage during shows. He knew exactly what it entailed for me to do what I do. And there was no indication whatsoever that he wanted that to change until a year after into the marriage. Yeah. I guess he had to wait a whole year, otherwise, if it had been, like, a week, I probably would have just annulled the marriage and said, "Fuck you, go away," at that point. But no, it took 21 years to finally say that. So for those 21 years, and then some, I shut myself off from possibilities. I was no longer a possibilian. I am now. I'm living it now. Believe me, it's been a ride, a really good ride. But don't misunderstand, this has been a really good experience coming out of that marriage and discovering all kinds of things, becoming a rebel fawn, because that's what it takes. And there was a lot of grief in there. Oh, there was a tremendous amount of grief. So I'm not going to candy coat this. I'm not going to say, "Oh, it's all fine and dandy. I went from here to there with no struggle." That's not life. Let's be completely honest. Anyone who says that is full of bullshit, or they haven't done any kind of change at all. Change hurts, it costs. Ask a butterfly coming out of a cocoon. They have to press against that chrysalis to be able to unfold its wings. And did you know? You probably do, but just a reminder if you don't, or maybe if you don't, if you try to help a butterfly out, it will not survive. It will not be able to fly because the pressure, the pushing against that chrysalis in order to get out is what strengthens their wings. We got to we got to press through and get stronger so that we can fly. That's just the long and short of it. So if you're afraid of what it takes to push through and to go back into the realm of possibility, and I say back into because we came here in the realm of possibility. It's just been squashed out of us in various ways. So, to go back into the realm of possibility, there's going to be some pressure. You're going to have to push in order to become stronger. But if you're not willing to do that, well, gosh, if you're not willing to do that, I don't know what to tell you, because there is not any amount of any help or advice or information or anything like that that's going to help you. You're just stuck. And that's sad, because you've chosen to be below who you were intended to be. You're choosing a low threshold, or actually, you're choosing a threshold. Because when you really look at the word possibilities, there is no threshold. Everything's possible. Everything. I mean, there's even a scripture: with God, all things are possible. Does it have some kind of parameter on that? No, it does not. It ends there. Like, period. Done. End of discussion. Everything really is possible. But is it possible if you're not willing to do what it takes to reach for it? Of course not. It's logical, right? You could sit back and go, well, duh. Well, yeah, duh. That's what I'm saying. Of course it's not logical. Of course it doesn't make any sense. If you want to get from point A to point B, but you don't do anything about it, how are you going to get there? I mean, duh. Right? So I know this might be kind of hard to hear for some of you, because I'm calling it out. You want to mope and groan and complain about how miserable your life is? Well, that's because you're living in a threshold life, and you're the one keeping you away from your possibilities. See, I had to come to terms with the fact that, yeah, my ex deceived me, but I chose to stay. That's on me. So those 21 years, well, we already went through one. So those remaining 20 years, that was on me. I could have left. I didn't know how I would. And I was very scared, very trapped. So believe me, I know what that's like. I really do. Halfway around the world, away from anybody and anyone that I know, in an extremely different culture. And I'm told that I can just go home, but I won't support you. Very scary. So I'm calling it out, because it took a lot. It took a lot of misery before I really realized that I couldn't tolerate it anymore, to the point where I literally wanted off the planet. And hopefully you're not at that point. Hopefully, if you're hearing this right now, you are at a place where you're like, you know what? Damn it. I'm going to live my possibilities. And there might be more than one. There's no threshold. It's not like you only get one chance at a possibility here on planet Earth. No, we get lots. The real question then is, see, I like to ask a lot of questions. What are you willing to change today that can help you open yourself up to your possibilities again? What can you change? What can you do? What can you think about? What questions could you ask? What desire could you let start to bubble up in you again, that you know you should be pursuing? That you know that that's what your heart desires, your destiny, if you will. Because that speaks about what you should be working toward. Now, here's the kicker. It's going to change you. It has to. Because you can't go from point A to point B without doing something. And in that doing, you're becoming. You have to become in order to do the thing that is necessary to be a possibilian. And that change, yeah, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. And at first, you may be very upset and irritated, frustrated. You may throw a tantrum. I did. I did. Oh, I wanted it so much. I wanted to just snap my fingers and have all my possibilities back. That's not how it works. If you think that's going to be how it is, then dare I say that you live in delusion land because that's not reality. That's just not. Ask anyone who's been successful with anything. It takes something, it takes some doing, but it also takes becoming in order to achieve that doing. You really do have to become more than you are today. And that's scary. I understand that. Again, I really, really do. But is it possible? It is entirely possible. You might have to get out of the way, though, of your own self, like I did. You might have to get out of the way. But that's okay. Because guess what? The possibilities await. And it's super exciting and super fun. And there's so much joy when you step into this realm of possibility rather than being stuck and relegating yourself to, "Oh, I guess this is how it's going to be." Oh, woe is me. I am such a victim here. And this is just the cards that life dealt me. I'm just so unlucky. There's so many people I watch and they're just so lucky. Mm, you can call it luck if you want, but I betcha dollars to donuts that they've done something. So you can only play the woe is me card for so long. After a while, people get tired of hearing it for one thing, because it's like gets old, especially if you're going to complain and not do anything about it. See, here's the thing. You have the power. You have the power to do whatever it takes to do. You have the power to live as a possibilian. It's all up to you. So, again, check out my ebook, which is From Almost Ending It All to Fun Hot Bitch Mom. I'll have to tell you that story too. That title, Fun Hot Bitch Mom. Another episode. But also check out this really cool book, Ben and Me, by Eric Weiner, Weiner. It's a great read or listen. Fascinating life of Benjamin Franklin. Super fun to hear about how he really understood the realm of possibility and how he was just himself and really stood out in a super cool way because of that. So take a chance. What can you do today to open yourself up to possibility? Are you living possibility? Any of those questions, please drop an answer. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what your possibilities are and what you're doing to get there. And are you living it along the way? Because that's part of it too. There's the vision, but there's the living it as you go. And that's super fun. That's also possibility. It's part of the possibility. I want to hear from you. So drop a note and let's talk about our possibilities. Have a super extraordinary day filled with the best possibilities you could possibly imagine.